That's what you think. Nope, I'm back. I did make it. And we're back for day 2 of the advanced training. Yes, I did get away. But the thing is, to say that I'm not a happy person would be a bit of an understatement today. I would basically say that I'm a bit pissed off today. For those of you that were in the webinar yesterday, you might have recalled that at some point, my phone started to ring. Now, what happened, basically at that time, I did not have the opportunity to do any checks, but it seems that there was a breach on my PBX from one of our participants in the webinar. Now, yeah, to say that I'm unhappy would be a bit of an understatement. During our webinar, someone started to play with the PBX. Now, I understand that doing demonstrations on a live PBX, which is accessible from the outside, does carry some certain risks. You have QR codes, a lot of people can take a print screen, and that's probably what happened. So what happened was, as you can see, the ones that are highlighted, you see that at some point, Paul Keating was doing a call to the ring group, and then afterwards, when we started this is the actual call that came into the phone at that time. Okay. I see that someone did connect with the operator extension and started to do echo tests, and they started to try to make a few calls, and they were successful. Okay. Now, I have seen it as well from my provider's account. As you can see, the balance is quite low. They did only manage to get 21 cents out of it, but guess what? I'm not one to take this sitting down. Okay. Now, if it was anyone from the webinar, I will give you until tomorrow to own up. I do have some suspicions who it is because it was from Greece. I have the logs of the PBX, and I have the IP address that you connected from. You didn't even try to mask the IP address. Now, a quick lookup. I have the provider as well, and I will go to the provider. Yes, for 21 cents. Okay, so I do see it as, because this is 3CX network, it is basically a connection which came in through legitimate channels, but it was an unauthorized attempt to access. So I will give you until tomorrow to own up to it. If not, on Friday, I go to Hellas Online, I go to Vodafone. Okay? Now, on that note, I hope everyone is having a good day. Okay? I will mention, because I see that some people are still joining in, we do have about another minute to that. So if until tomorrow at the end of day, at the end of business, I do not have an email, you probably know my email because it is on the PBX. I have shown it to you a few times as well. Or you can contact me at training@3cx.com. I will not push this forward. This is why we cannot have nice things. Now, in good faith, I do show you my PBX. I do show you a few skills and everything. I do understand that there is an inherent risk of showing sensitive information on a PBX when I'm doing a webinar. Okay, but this is why we can't have nice things. Okay. No, actually, we're not going to stop the webinars, but I'm going to take certain. I'm going to lock down the security on my PBX, and I have already done so. I just thought, in good faith, I have no problem showing my stuff, but people do take advantage of it, and yeah. And the thing is, come on, for 21 cents, at least make it worth your while. Anyway. Shane, we will be covering the security of that tomorrow, and I will be using this as an example. Now, just to show, since you have accessed my information, I will even show your information. Okay, so these are the numbers that they attempted to dial. There is 3 numbers. They were successful for making, it is per minute dialing, so 7 cents a minute came up to 21 cents. I can't even show, that's going to time out anyway, but I basically showed all the calls. So we made calls from my DID back to, that's the destination if no answer that we did, okay? No, it's not going to ruin it. I'm not going to have everyone suffer because of this. And I will basically give until tomorrow for the person to own up. Now, I do have, just so you can see that I do have the web meeting report. So I basically have, oh, sorry, where is it? So the reports basically of everyone that had joined from yesterday. I basically have the list of everyone that joined in, and I will basically go through the list and I will contact the provider and give them the addresses of everyone I suspect joining from Greece. I'm not going to get our IT involved to get the IP addresses of people where you joined from, because that will be a breach of your privacy. But for those that did, basically, everyone from Greece is a suspect now. Okay. Okay, so basically, I will be pushing this. I do have a lot more time on my hands now that I'm not traveling and I'm stuck in the office. I do have a lot of time on my hands, and I will push this for 21 cents. Sweet justice. Okay, right. Actually, Jamie, I will be repeating this when we do. We are up to 70 now, so I will be pushing this throughout the webinar. So you're not going to hear the end of this until we finish today. Okay, but I will be sending an email to everyone in BCC from the training account. So you expect an email at the end of the day, basically tomorrow. Expect an email from me explaining that. I won't give any details in that email, but I will ask the person to own up to it. Right. Okay. So let's get started with that. So I'm going to stop that presenting, and I'm going to go back to my webinar. Let's go back to our normal rhythms. Actually, before I do, I have a few signs here in the office. Okay. Now the first one is, you don't have to be crazy to work here. We'll train you. That's internally. Okay. So, okay. But I also have another one, and that justifies my mood for today. Okay. These are on my desk, and usually when people come to my desk, they see one of the 2 signs. Okay, so this is today's mood. Okay, teacher in bad mood today. So anyway, let's get back to our webinar. All right, so today basically we are going to cover 3 modules. We are going to cover the advanced inbound routing. We are going to connect 2 PBXs together with the bridges. And we will finish off today with the advanced outbound routing, making calls between the 2 PBXs to connect to the providers on the other PBX. Okay, I would like to welcome you all. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Nicholas. I'm not a very happy chappy today, but that will not affect us in the webinar. The smile has started to come back. Bit noisy out there. The CEO has brought his 2 daughters in, so there's a bit of there's a few kids running around. Albertina, that's what I do. I am the technical trainer of 3CX. It is up to me to, and it is tasked upon me to educate you guys of the ins and outs of 3CX. And it's going to be very interesting tomorrow with the webinar, which is the security and anti-fraud. I will be going through the various procedures and how I basically figured it out someone was actually breaching my PBX. Alex, no, these webinars are not recorded, as you know, and they are available on the 3CX Academy. No. I'm not gonna do, and I'm not gonna retaliate on that, but I will take it with the normal legal channels on that. Shane, no, we don't actually cover the high availability. It is very simple to to create, but it is out of the scope of the 3CX Academy. What the 3CX Academy basically does is to get people up to a certain point and then using their Google search and basically their search skills to basically be able to go and configure the extra step. We basically get people up to a certain point that covers up to 90-95% of all installations. Okay. So tomorrow is going to be very interesting, but today we are going to concentrate on the routing inbound and outbound and also connecting two PBXs together. Right. Now, you can ask questions at any time. The only thing I do request is please keep the questions on topic. Like we usually say, there is a lot of you. Yesterday, we had quite a lot of questions. Most of them were on topic. There were a few which were off topic, but doesn't matter. I try not to cut people off because I do try to get as much information out to you guys as possible. Okay. Right. So let's get started with the advanced inbound routing. We are going to start with what it is. The inbound rules were covered in the SIP trunks, and we created a DID. You probably saw it earlier on as well. This DID is configured on the PBX to send the call when someone calls this number to go to a certain destination. In our case, a few days ago, we sent it to Bob Hawk's extension so we could see it coming up on the screen. However, we usually have call treatments that we want to treat calls differently when they're coming from a certain area. Now, I think if I'm not mistaken, Serkan basically asked yesterday if I can treat calls from any VIPs differently from any others. Yes, you can. And this is how you do it with the caller ID inbound routing. We route the calls based on the calling number. Albertina, the DIDs are given to you by the providers. They usually come in chunks of 5, 10. In Cyprus, if you get a SIP trunk, they will give you, for example, 10. With the ISDN lines, primary lines that we used to receive many, many years ago. Okay. ISDN, just a bit of trivia. Does anyone know what ISDN stands for? With a primary line, we used to get 300 DIDs in Cyprus. Okay, so these are given to you by your provider. With the PBX, the limit is well in the thousands, so there is technically no limit for unless it's a very, very large installation. Integrated Services Digital Network. That is technically correct, but the Nicholas definition of it is it still does nothing. Okay, so it still does nothing. Okay, so we have moved on from ISDN and we have gone on to VoIP, to SIP, and any other protocols as well. Okay, now, like any inbound rule, we do have a routing based on the time of the day. So during the office hours and outside office hours, how do we process calls from a particular number or from a particular country or area? And the holidays are also susceptible. Don't forget the play holiday prompt when it's a global holiday. And the difference, well, the other difference that we have with the caller ID rules and the DIDs is with a DID, you create your DIDs in the SIP trunk, and then it's just a simple drop-down box. You select the DID, and that automatically maps that to the SIP trunk. However, with a caller ID rule, you will need to add the caller ID rule multiple times. Okay, so you basically allow the call to come in from a certain number. And since you have multiple SIP trunks, any one of those people at that particular country or that particular number can dial you on any one of your SIP trunks. So in order to catch and process that call differently, we will need to add that CID rule multiple times. We've got 5 SIP trunks, we'll need to add it 5 times and map it to each SIP trunk. Jared, it doesn't really feel like a holiday. It feels like house arrest. I'm glad that I'm out of it, to be honest. Now, we all like to be at home. Working from home is a good thing, but trust me, coming to the office was a different mentality. Right, so I have created a DID for employees to check their voicemail remotely during the beginning of our pandemic. Is there an easier approach? Actually, no, that's the correct way. So once you, the easiest way is to use a web client. So they just log into their web client and they can see the voicemail and check it without actually dialing in. But if someone is using just a normal GSM or any home phone, a DID sent to the voicemail number 999 666 whatever is the correct way to do it. Yes, Serkan, the routing table is the first point of call before it goes before it gets processed. So the call comes in, it hits the SIP trunk. The SIP trunk will see, okay, what DIDs do I have and what inbound rules do I have on my SIP trunk? It will go through the list and then process them. Listen, if you created the DID to go directly to the voicemail box, that is the correct way you did it. It will ask them for their extension number. It will ask them for their PIN number, and then they're in the voicemail menu. That you did it correctly. You didn't do anything wrong, Albertina, in this case. Okay, right. Moving on. So let's click on that. Right. The caller ID inbound rules are in the inbound rules. You see the nice two big blue buttons. We love our big blue buttons at 3CX. The second one is the add CID rule. You can optionally give this a name. This will show up on the screens of the phones if you do give it a name. Otherwise, it won't show up. So this is entirely optional. The outbound rules are mandatory, but for the inbound rules, it is optional. We then add the caller ID. The caller ID could be a very particular number. Now, for example, you could have a VIP, could be a friend of the boss. The boss says, whenever this person calls, I don't want this person to go through an IVR. I don't want them to go through a queue. I don't want them to go through a call flow app. I want them to come directly to my extension. Fantastic. Just put the number in. Be very careful when you are adding the number, though. It will need to be in the format exactly as the PBX sees it. Okay. Now, the PBX is just a computer. Okay, it's just a piece of software. It is black and white. It either recognizes the number or doesn't. It will not recognize any variations. So if we have plus 44 and the number of the person, and the caller ID comes in as 44 or with a 00, the PBX will not recognize it. So we need to have it exactly in that format. We can also use the star character as a wildcard. This wildcard character will basically take everything else after that, just like we saw in the DIDs at the beginning of the number. So plus 44 star will take anything coming in from the UK. Plus 4420 star will take anything coming in from the Greater London area. But you are correct. There is also the voicemail to email option. I didn't actually think of that. Didn't actually come to my mind at the time. But as Albertina has said, they don't have a really good internet connection. Probably don't have access to a computer or anything like that. Okay. I created a CID to block a number, but I'm assuming if the caller blocks their number, they will get past the rules. Albertina, that is true. But we also, in addition to the inbound rule, we also have the number blacklist. So there is a functionality in the PBX where you just put the number in, but you can also create an inbound rule where the caller ID basically is either private number or anonymous. So if you block your number, you just see how it comes in. Does it come in as private number, no number, anonymous, and just put the text in as a caller ID, and that will take it. So anyone calling in with an anonymous number, just block it. Daniel, yes, you can. You can put the wildcard at the beginning of the number as well. It is just like any inbound rule. I just wanted to mention that it is basically something that will need to be checked. But putting a wildcard at the beginning of the number and at the end, sometimes it works a bit iffy, just how the numbers come in. The caller, actually, Tanis, sorry, Toons, I don't know how to say the name, sorry. The caller ID doesn't support regex. It is just very basic. The only thing that we do support is just the star character. We do regular expressions when we do the caller ID reformatting. We're going to see these further down, okay? So we give it a name, for example, the caller ID from London, plus 4420 star, and it comes in from the London area. Albertina, yeah. Listen, if someone is abusing the PBX and they do try to come in just by blocking their number, there is so much you can do. Okay, so you can have an authentication, but as you are a crisis organization, you probably don't want to have them authenticate. You just probably want them to go straight through. How to Jared? Listen. You can import your DIDs. We are working on getting the ability to add a range of DIDs in the SIP trunk. Currently, it is just a single DID. But if you do an export of your inbound rules and then import them, you can just basically assign the the DIDs to them, and that will import them as well. Okay, so you can do that with a CSV. I assume we can do this via web servers via the CallFlow Designer. Serkan, yes, you can, the CallFlow Designer. And we have released that blog post about the CallFlow Designer, and we do have the demo on GitHub as well. So if you want to do a telephone ordering system, go for it. Now, the PBX, when it processes inbound rules, goes in a top-down fashion. It is like the exceptions that we talked about last week, and it is like the outbound rules that we talked about with the SIP trunks. We are going to talk about them later on as well. So the PBX doesn't do a best matching, we do a first matching. We start at the top and work our way down. So when we have our rules and our DIDs and our SIP trunks, we basically, let me just get that. We basically have, this is the screen, okay, this is the inbound rules page. Now, the SIP trunks will be separated virtually, okay? So you see all the inbound rules for all the trunks on one page. The only separation is an invisible line, okay? You don't actually see it, but you will see the name of the trunk. For example, trunk one, okay, just like that. And trunk two's name over here, trunk two. And then you have another invisible line, okay? You don't actually see it. And then the trunk three rules over here. So the PBX will always, so when a call comes in on the third SIP trunk, it will start to process the rules from this point down, okay, between here. If you need to move your rules up or down, you can only move them up to the threshold of the trunk. So basically within this location here for trunk 3, for here for trunk 2, and here for trunk 1, okay? Now, once we find a match, we won't go any further to process any better matching. We do a first matching. An example is the following. Our SIP trunk has a DID, okay? Remember the last 6 digits and the star at the beginning? That is German-based and ends in 061592. We get a call from the UK, okay? It starts with a +44 and it is from London, and this number is now calling our PBX. Our first scenario of inbound rules has the DIDs at the top. So everyone calling in will basically be processed by this inbound rule. The caller ID inbound rule that I have for the UK numbers, which could be going directly to an English-speaking queue, is not processed because it matches the DID. This could probably be a German queue, for example. If I need people calling from the UK treated differently, I will move that rule up to the beginning. So anyone calling from the UK gets matched by that. Anyone calling this DID from any other country other than the UK gets processed by this rule, okay? So if you have the PBX, a lot of people say that I've created my inbound rules and it's not going to the correct destination. I guarantee you 100% that it is always either a rule being in the wrong position or the way that you have everything set up, it's not matching the number. So if you have +44 star, it is coming in, for example, with either a 00 or without that and just with the 44 at the beginning, okay? So, oops, not that one. No, great. So that basically is the inbound rules. Very simple. Joel, you can just move it up. Are you having a difficulty moving from page 2 to move it up to the other one? That's right, Daniel. The rule of thumb is the most restrictive first. Oh my God, Appleton has a big question here. Is there a limit to consolidating a provider SIP trunk to create more than one SIP trunks in 3CX? Hang on, just they are unaware of 3 things. Oh, definitely. Listen, all you need, listen, a SIP trunk generally is just the account, okay? So you just connect to one account, and with a SIP trunk, you can have multiple calls coming in. So a provider might give you 15 channels, 50 channels. That basically means how many calls can go at the same time through that SIP trunk. The PBX is totally able to do that. And then you just basically assign the DIDs to that SIP trunk. if they have them assigned to that account, you will be able to process the calls. You just need one SIP account and just open up as much channels as you need. Okay. Right. Now, sometimes the caller ID, as we do the inbound rules matching with a caller ID, sometimes providers do not give us the proper caller ID. With 3CX, we are in a position to change the caller ID. Okay. What shows up on the screens of the phones? We use 3CX specific regulations. About regex, Toon's asking me about the regular expressions. We use 3CX specific ones. Okay, they're very similar to normal regular expressions, but they are 3CX specific. I am going to explain them further down. We are going to explain them all, don't worry. And we're going to do examples as well. Now, we identify the number coming in as a pattern. What does it start with? What digits does it contain? How many digits does it contain? And so on. We then go and we reformat that number using the replace pattern. Okay, so we are going to demonstrate all this. Now, we do have a nice little document which does explain this in a lot more detail. I will try to make this as easy to understand as possible. Okay, now, when a call comes in, on our phones, we generally see the number, but if you are using the web client, for example, or the 3CX app for Windows, you generally see some text coming in as well. The caller ID name is not reformatted. We don't touch that. We only do the number. I will explain this when we do the demo, and you will see it in action as well. Right, when do we do a caller ID reformatting? In a few scenarios. First of all, the provider sends the caller ID in an inconvenient format. So our number that came in from the UK previously with a 44203327 2020. Now, off the top of our head, 44, people generally know the country code for the UK. So I say, oh, it's a number from the UK. Thank you very much. I answer it. Now, what happens when I try to call this person back? The PBX will process it, says, okay, it starts with any number, send it out to the provider, and the provider has to deal with it. Now, sometimes the provider with a 44, if I send this to my US provider, they probably won't be able to process that because they will see that as just an ordinary number. If I put, however, 00 or a plus, they say, oh, it's an international call. I need to send that to the UK. But what happens? I can receive the call, but when I try to make the call out to this number, it fails. So I basically need to put a plus at the beginning of that number to send it out to the provider and have them process it. Also, another scenario, I'm going to give you a nice little scenario now. I've got 4 SIP trunks. My first SIP trunk is in Australia. My second SIP trunk is in New Zealand. I have another SIP trunk in the UK, and I have another number coming in from the Netherlands. Now, if I receive a call on my Australian SIP trunk from a Sydney number, the first 2 digits will be 02. Okay? My New Zealand number coming in from Christchurch, from a mobile number, also has an area code of 02. And coming in from London, as you saw earlier on, the area code is 020. And when I get a call from the Netherlands on my Netherlands SIP trunk from Amsterdam, my area code is also 020. So you can see now that I've got 4 SIP trunks, I'm getting calls from 4 different countries with the same area code or a very similar area code. Now, I get a call from 02 on my Australian SIP trunk. I answer it. Okay, the person's from Australia. Now I'm going to call the person back. I'm going to hit redial from my call history, and I'm going to hit 02. Now my inbound rule might send the call to Australia from my Netherlands or my UK SIP trunk. So that basically messes up with my routing. So how do I basically resolve that issue? I will basically remove the 0 from the beginning of each number at the SIP trunk, and I will basically just put the relevant country code at the beginning. So I'm going to remodify the number to show on my screen, plus 61. Okay, there, that's a bit of a mess there. Plus 64 for New Zealand, sorry about that. And plus 44 from the UK, and plus 31 from Netherlands. Well, basically, Albertina, if the call is coming in from the provider with the full number, but if I'm receiving a Netherlands number coming in on a Netherlands SIP trunk, there is a possibility that they will not put the plus 31 at the beginning and just send it as a local number. So the format that they send the number in is from a local number. So in order for me to get my routing all done properly, it is beneficial for me to just put the country code at the beginning. Okay, so you basically have the ability to do this. So whenever I need to call a Netherlands number, I will do plus 31 and I will send that call through the SIP trunk of the Netherlands. So it is a local call. I won't send it through Australia, I won't send it through New Zealand, and I will have a proper routing. Okay. Now we add the reformatting at the SIP trunk level. So going into your SIP trunk, going to the caller ID tab, we have the inbound section, another nice big blue button there. Click on add and you come to the formatting page. You put the number that you want to match, that you want to identify, anything starting with a 44 in this case. Don't worry, I'm going to explain in the next slide what all these little characters mean. And then we replace it, just put a plus at the beginning and the rest of the number, okay? So Oscar, these are 3CX specific regular expressions. We use them in 3CX, okay? They are specific to 3CX, okay? As we did mention over here, they are based on 3CX specific regular expressions, okay? So don't worry about the example. I will bring that up here for you, okay? So we identify the number coming in with its length and what digits it contains. So if I want to identify a digit, it's a single dot. 2 dots means it's 2 digits. An 8-digit number, I'll give you 3 guesses how many dots that's going to contain. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay? It is a wild card, but wait for it. Okay? So our 8-digit number, the PBX will now match any 8-digit number coming in. Now, generally, I can consolidate these, and I'm just going to use the smaller character in this case. Generally, I can then put a dot star. So just putting the star is not enough. So if you have numbers followed by a star with the reformatting, don't confuse the star with just the inbound rule. In the caller ID reformatting, we need to have dot star, and this comes at the end. You cannot put anything after this, okay? So we have a dot star to indicate the rest. Now, to identify certain patterns, we will identify those with digits from 0 to 9 or a plus. So these are the main ways that a number will come in, with either a plus or any number coming in. So if I want to identify a number coming in from the US, I will generally have 1 at the beginning if it's an 11-digit number. I will put the area code, for example, 813, that's for Tampa, Florida, okay? So 1813 dot star, that will get any number coming in from the US from the 813 area code, okay? So that's the format of the number. Now, when I need to remodify my number, I will get certain elements from the source pattern and reuse them, the local number, for example, in the replace pattern. So in order to use those, I need to enclose them in parentheses and use them as variables. So I could, for example, put the 1 as a variable, 813 as a variable, and dot star as a variable as well. Okay, so I will now be able to use these as building blocks to reuse them and reformat the number. These variables have numbers from 1 to 9, starting from left and going to the right. So 0, 1, 2, 3. This is variable number 1. This is variable number 2. And this is variable number 3. Okay, so our sample basically has here any number starting with a 44. So the number starts with a 44, the PBX will detect numbers starting with 44 and anything coming in after that. Okay, irrespective of the area code, irrespective of the local number, anything coming in, the PBX will accept it now. So that's creating our source pattern. How do we go and rewrite the number now? We basically can use any digits from 0 to 9 or a plus. Okay, so we will put, for example, a plus at the beginning of the number. Just add a few digits if we need to as well. And then we will use the backslash. Now get into the habit of saying it as well, backslash, because it is this one. If you use the forward slash, this will not work. Okay, a lot of people make the mistake. It is a common mistake that we see from people doing it. And they say, oh, my caller ID reformatting is not working. And then we log on to the PBX or we get the information and it is using a forward slash. No, it is a backslash. Okay. Now, our sample number that we had earlier on, the number coming in from London, 44 dot star. Okay. Now we rewrite the number. We put the 44 again. I can't use the 44 as a variable because it's not enclosed in parentheses. So I need to rewrite that number. \1 will get this variable and bring it down into the answer. It gives me the exact same number, okay? This is a bit of a useless example, but it just explains what this can do. I can put the 44 as a variable. That's variable number 1 now. And anything coming in after that is variable number 2. I can rewrite the number with a plus 44. Okay, so I'm actually rewriting the number manually and then using this variable to come down and formulate the number. And this number will be shown on my screen. But there is also an alternative. Since I have the two variables now, I can just put the plus at the beginning. I can bring the 44 into the number, and I can bring the second variable, anything coming after that, into the answer as well, and get the same number. So as we can see, there is multiple ways that you can do your source and replace pattern. Okay, there is no correct answer. There is no one correct answer. So this makes it extremely difficult for us to do the certification exam. Okay, now what we do in the certification exam is that we give you the original number, the source pattern, the replace pattern, and the ending number. And we ask you to verify if all that information is correct. Now, when you are doing that in this certification exam, note that when we use digits, that the plus is considered a digit. Okay, it's very important. You probably got about 2 points on the certification exam just because of this. You're welcome. Okay, so our source pattern doesn't need to include everything as a variable. So we have the country code as a variable. We have the local number as a variable, that's 1 and 2, but the area code is not included. So just putting \2 will just give me the local 8-digit number. Okay. Is anyone brave enough to do the example? Anyone brave enough? No? You're all hiding? No? Okay, give it a try. Now, let's take it one step at a time. Now, coming back a bit, just coming back a bit. After the backslash, you use a single number from 1 to 9. I did forget to mention that. I do apologize. From 1 to 9, and this is the number of the variable. So we start from left to right. You can have a maximum of 9 variables. So you can use as many variables as you want, as long as it is within 9, and you properly address them afterwards. So first of all, what do we have? We have a country code. Let's put that as a variable. Okay, so my source pattern would be, for example, 44. If you don't want to put the 44 as a variable, you will need to rewrite that in the replace pattern. So do I put the area code in? I could. I I can put that as 20. And basically the local number could be any number within London. So I will generalize that and put it as dot star. Okay. So I've got 3 variables now. How would I put the plus at the beginning? Yep, Bart has it correct. And dot dot and Jesper, you put only a star. That is incorrect. You need to put the dot star. If you just put the star itself, it won't actually work. Okay, now I can guarantee that at some point you will put star dot. Everyone does that. It is one of the common mistakes that we see. If you do contact technical support about that, you will not make the wall of shame. We do have a wall of shame. It is a common issue that we see. The worst case scenario, the technical support agent will probably laugh at you and help you. You will be laughed at. That is correct. We do need to have some entertainment for us as well. No, Jared, that's not going to happen. There's a lot of stuff on that wall. Yuridanka, you have it correct. Plus /1 /2 /3. That is correct. Albertina, your one is incorrect because with your result, you will basically get +44 /2. So that will give you 20 and then a 0 at the end. So you'll basically get that number showing up on the phone. Okay, so Albertina, your one will show +44 200. Okay. Evangelos, I would avoid putting the full number at the end. I would use dot star because that will only work just for this number. So it's good to get as general as possible. Hang on, just give me a second. Let me just give a thing. I am okay. Just a bit of noise out there, and they're just having a bit of a laugh. They're a bit too noisy. We're a rowdy bunch here at 3CX. Can you hear me now? Am I back? Hello. Yep. Okay. Right. Okay. Now let's go to the second one. +44 2033 27 2020 to just show the local number. How would I do that? No sound? Hello? Test? Test? Hello? Am I on mute? No, I'm not. Okay, good. Okay. For those who cannot hear, please refresh. Okay, right. So the second example, I could also put the plus as a variable. Not a problem. I can do that if I want to. I will put the country code in, put the area code in, and the local number. 4 variables. To get the local number in this case, what would I put? Bryce has just, Bruce, you are slightly correct for this example, yes, but like I said, just get into the habit of putting dot star for the unknown numbers, which are more general for the local numbers. Well, Jason, we do have the plus coming in this case, so we would need to put the plus in as well. And Joel has it correct, +44 in one variable. That's also correct. 20 is another one, and dot star /3. In my case, it would be /4. Okay. Now, that is correct. Right. So this is the example that we had. We basically put 44 dot star as the first one, and basically we didn't put, in our example, we didn't put the area code separately. We just put any number coming in from the UK. Now, the second one, we put +44 as one variable. I opted to put the plus as a separate variable as well, \4 in my case, \3 in this one, okay? Now, all the material that we are covering at the Academy, 3cx.com/36 Academy for all the material, okay? Right, so let's go now and share the application. Now, since we have a lot more participants in, I will bring your attention back to what I mentioned at the beginning of the webinar. For those of you that joined us later on, yesterday during our webinar, you might have noticed that my phone did ring. We did have a breach of my PBX. I noticed this. I noticed this basically after we finished. Basically, I came in the next day because as soon as we closed off, I just left immediately. But the PBX basically showed me that there was an attempt to make a call to an invalid number. Okay, so the PBX, I did have the email notifications enabled on my PBX, and this sent me a notification that there was a wrong number dialed in. Okay, I did some investigation on my PBX, and I did notice that there was a few calls which were made successfully from the PBX. That was probably due to probably the QR code coming up on the screen. Someone did a screenshot and provisioned a phone. I went into the logs of my PBX and found the IP address. So this basically is the IP address of the perpetrator. Did a quick search on my provider account, and I saw that there was a few unsuccessful and a few successful calls as well, to a total cost of 21 cents US. Okay. And I did a quick search, and that is basically on Hellas Online, basically Vodafone or Panafon. So I will be chasing this up with the provider on Friday. If it is anyone in the webinar, and I basically do have the list of participants that joined in because this was from Greece, that IP address is from Greece. So I would request that the person that did do this, malicious or not, please send me an email at training@3cx.com apologizing, and I won't chase this any further. Otherwise, I will be raising an abuse issue with the provider. Okay? Okay, so I do request that you do follow up with me. It will remain between us. I'm not going to involve the IT department to get the firewall logs as well. We can end this nicely, or we can do it the hard way. And yes, I will chase it up for 21 cents. It's not the 21 cents. I can clearly afford that, but it is a matter of principle. It was an unauthorized access to the 3CX network. Right. Okay, so I will stop presenting that, and I will go onto my normal screen now, onto the other virtual machine. Right, so this is the PBX that got breached. Okay. Now, I have made a modification to my outbound rules to basically allow calls to only my telephone number and only to my test number. I have, and consequently, Greece was one of the allowed countries as well. I only have Cyprus, Greece, UK, and the US allowed, but that was a call to Greece. So, inbound rules. Now, yeah, Marlene, I know, and that's the reason why we can't have nice things, okay? Now, I do understand that there is an inherent risk of me showing sensitive information on a PBX which is publicly accessible, but yeah, just because I did doesn't mean you have to. Right, so I'm going to connect onto my other PBX now. My other PBX, and I'm going to make an incoming call. Okay, so okay, let me see if that inbound rule goes to the correct one. That goes to the Bob Hawk, so we can see it on the screen. Bobby, where's Bobby? Where's Bobby? There he is. And is he up? Is Bobby? Yep, there he is. So Bob's going to receive a call now, and we're going to see that it comes in, and the name of the rule will be New York number. Okay. Now, this New York number this is the text. This is the caller ID name. We will not modify this in any way. We will change this number, which is the caller ID number. Okay. So that will be changed to put a plus at the beginning. Sebastian, yes, I did. I found out because of the invalid number. I have my email notifications active. Now, the thing is, even if my PBX does get breached and I don't realize it, the maximum they can steal basically is $5, because I usually put $5 in that account to allow the calls to go out. Albertina, yes, you can. It is just a normal inbound rule in this case. Sorry, just getting that back again. So you're different. You can send it to an extension. You can send it to a voicemail, to an outside number as well. So if you've got an engineer on call, have people calling in and send it to an outside number or to an external answering service and so on. You can send it to a fax or send it to a call flow app as well. Now, I'm going to create a caller ID rule now, which I'm going to call USA caller. Okay, so it's a caller from the USA. The caller ID, as we saw the number, it starts with a 1. And then basically anything coming in after that. Okay, so USA caller, 1, anything coming after that, we map it to the SIP trunk, the call-centric account, and this will be sent to the extension of Bob Hawke. I'm going to send it to the same extension, just so we can see it on the screen. Okay, so I'm going to make a call into that again, and we should see the call coming in from a USA caller to Bob. Oops. I see New York number. What have I done wrong here? Why isn't it not showing USA caller and showing New York number? The ordering of the rules, that's right. So because it matched, because I called the DID, it matched the DID first. So I want that moved up. Now, when I make that call, it shows the USA caller with the number as we want it. Okay, top-down fashion, that's right. So if you do see the PBX acting not the way you want it, just go and check your ordering of the rules, okay? Yes, I do. Okay, about the inbound, is there any chance to add a welcome email before playing an IVR? You have a special promo for a month and add a jingle to the IVR thing. Yep. Listen, you can do that. You can send it, for example, to a digital receptionist. Just put the intro prompt to be your jingle. Okay, I'm just going to do it with the wake up IVR. You can, for example, make it to a standard, whatever you want. Play this jingle. Don't put anything in the actions, and then just put it after no input, after 1 second, just send it to your normal IVR. Yeah, so you can send it through that and just change this prompt whenever you need. Okay, so we're going to go and reformat that number because that number is an invalid format. I want that in international format. Okay, so I'm going to go to my SIP trunk now, my call-centric account, caller ID, inbound. My source pattern, what does my number start with? Starts with a 1, and anything coming in after that, dot star. But I'm going to need to use these numbers in the replace pattern. So I'm going to put variables. I'm going to put this one as a variable, and I'm going to put the second unknown number as a variable. What's my replace pattern going to be? Plus, \1, \2. Okay, so I'm basically going to get the 1, bring it down, the other number, bring it down, and just put a plus at the beginning of them. Okay, that's how simple it is. And click on OK. Now, we should see the number coming in correctly. Another call coming in. Bob will see the +1, so that's the number coming in, but guess what? We now match this inbound rule because the caller ID is coming in, not in this format. So what we need to do is we need to correct our caller ID. So just put a +1 at the beginning, and now we should see Bob coming in, getting the call, USA caller +1. Like I said, this number will not be modified. That's the text. We do not modify that in any way. We modify this. So if I need to call the person back, I can see that this will be used. That's just text. This is the number that's actually used. Okay? Okie dokie. So the calls that I've been making to call in, is from this PBX and using this SIP trunk, okay? So I've basically got two PBXs. I've got lots of PBXs around the world, but I will basically now make this PBX connect to this PBX. That's right, Albertina. You will basically create a DID with your conference number. So if you want to have a conference number, you will basically route that to an extension, but now go down the bottom. You'll see the conference extension is down the bottom. So people can actually call into your conference now. You would then go to the settings of the PBX. Okay, conferencing, audio, and just put the number in there as well so they can see it on the welcome emails, on the invitation emails as well, so they know that they can actually dial this number now. Okay, so you can put the number there as well, and that will allow them to come through. That's right, Jody. It is basically just a separate office location. Now, if you've got 30 people in an office, which is a remote office, a satellite office, an SBC will probably be enough. What happens if you've got 300-400 people at one office and 300-400 at another office? With an SBC, it can get quite tedious. So you basically have them using their resources locally. Sometimes providers can't give you a line outside of their network. So you need to put a PBX in that country to connect onto their network with their little CPE, connect it onto the PBX, and then use that. That's going to be our next module after the bridges. PBX is in Google platform and our office has 22 lines. That's quite okay. You can just connect it onto the PBX. For example, my call-centric SIP trunk, it allows for 10 by default. My SIP trunk actually allows me 2. So I can just basically limit that to 2 simultaneous calls through this SIP trunk. Okay. So let's move on to our bridges. Now, what we're going to do now is we're going to connect two PBXs together, okay? When we hear the word bridge, the first thing that comes to our mind is those big structures, okay? Metal, steel, concrete, wood, whatever material you're using, that connects two pieces of land across a body of water, okay? Or across a valley. Now, those two pieces of land are connected via a bridge. That's what the PBX bridge does now. The two pieces of land are the PBXs, but the connection between them is the bridge. A bridge generally has geographical points. I will take an example of one of the most famous bridges in the world, the Sydney Harbour Bridge, where I was born. And this basically connects North Sydney to South Sydney. So the 2 points of the bridge have 2 geographical points, North and South Sydney. You might have East Bank, West Bank. We do have the case of Hungary as well, the capital city, which has the Danube River going through the middle. They have a lot of bridges going across them. They have a shitload of bridges going across them. And they connect Buda to Pest. So they don't say North and South, they say Buda and Pest. So Budapest is technically 2 cities. Okay, a bit of geography for you there. And we connect those 2 pieces of, yep. Now, are you saying what about the geography lesson about the S word? Now, actually, that is true, yeah. Yep, Panama connects the 2 oceans. So the 2 sides of the Panama Canal, we're not doing canals anyway now, but connects the Atlantic to the Pacific Ocean. All right, so a bit of geography for you there. Now, a bridge generally is above the water. A tunnel is generally under the water. In 3CX, we have managed to connect a bridge using the tunnel. So we have both. So our bridge uses the tunnel. We've managed to make something above and underwater into one. Okay, go 3CX. So we send the traffic encrypted through the 3CX tunnel protocol now. Listen, Jared, at the end of the day, what the SBC does is it creates a tunnel connection to the PBX from a remote office. The PBX itself can connect through the through the bridge to another PBX. So it's generally like a glorified SBC. Aha, Oscar, I'm going to answer that question with the slide further down. Marilyn, no, you can actually change this during the installation if it isn't on premise. If it is PBX Express, no, it will always be 5090, but we do send that. Now, to connect two PBXs together, it requires you to use a Pro or Enterprise Edition license. This cannot be used in a standard. Now, the master bridge. Now, one of the two PBXs. Sorry, coming back a bit. Now, with 3CX, the two geographical points that we have are not geographical. We don't actually have two set points. So we need to have one side given an endpoint location and the other side given an endpoint location as well. So now, since we can't do it geographically, we use master and slave. If you remember back in the day with the ID drives where you had little jumpers and you had to select master or slave, we've taken that naming convention as well. One of the PBXs is the regulator of the connection, where you always connect to. That's the master, and the slave will basically be the connector. So think of it like the master bridge is the controller of the connection, and the slave bridge is the connector. Okay. It will use its own license. That is correct. They are two independent PBXs. Now, if you guys is about 77 people, 76 of you basically. If you get your PBX and connect to another person's PBX, if you coordinate the usernames and passwords together and the IP addresses and the access, you will be able to do that. Okay, so we do require a Pro or Enterprise Edition license to do that. How? The master bridge is the controller of the connection. It will listen for incoming connections. It is like the PBX waiting for a connection from a 3.6 application, okay? And it will always listen on the tunnel port, by default 5090, unless you have changed that during the installation. Yeah, I know, Marilyn. I have come across that a few times. Primary, secondary, yeah, you can use that, but for us, we're not the most politically correct people. So yes, Javier, you can do that. The only thing that we do require is that it is on the same version. Okay. Now, this is done through the SIP trunks. So in the SIP trunks, you'll see another nice big blue button there, add bridge, add master. You will always create the master PBX first, or the primary PBX in this case, to basically have the authentication credentials ready. Now, the configuration is very straightforward. It's not complex at all. We need to give the bridge a name. We do this because it is used in the outbound rules to place the calls between the two PBXs. And it is also used in the presence in the web client, so you can actually see the presence of other people as well. The virtual extension number is the bridge ID. Okay. Now, it is always in the 10,000 range, irrespective of the digit length of the PBX. If you remember a few minutes ago with my call-centric account, it was 10,000. So I will need to find a virtual extension number in the 10,000 range, which is available on both the PBXs. They need to match identically, okay? It is used as part of the authentication. So that's the virtual extension number. Make sure it is the same on both sides. The outbound rule prefix to reach the remote PBX. This is a prefix that we can use to identify remote extensions. Now, I'll do this at the top. So I have my PBX over here. I have another PBX there. They are connected together. I've got two extensions on one side, one on the other, like that. Okay, let me just put some labels on there as well. We've got A and B. This is extension 100, and this is extension 101. Now, it can be blank depending on the setup. If you do not have overlapping extensions, you can keep this blank, okay? But if I'm using the same extension numbers on both sides, I'm encountered with a bit of a problem. Now, my outbound rule to reach the other PBX on this one would be a prefix of, I'm using 9 as an example. You can use any number that you want, and you're not limited to a single digit. So with a prefix of 9 and a length of 4, because I'm dialing a prefix, okay, and the extension number, so I'm dialing 4 digits so the PBX can recognize it, I will send that through to PBX B. And on the other side, I will use the same rule, prefix of 9 with a length of 4, and I will send that through to PBX A. So PBX A. Okay. Oops, prefix of 9, not P. Okay, 9. Okay. Now, before sending the call through, I will need to strip the digit because the other PBX will not recognize that number, the 9101. So I will basically strip one digit. We're going to cover this very shortly in the outbound rules. So stripping of one digit. Ed, no, it doesn't have to be the same. What I used to do is at one of my previous employments, I basically needed to create prefixes. So what I did is I used country codes. I used basically a 4-digit number. I put a 7 so everyone can dial 7 to get the internal network, and then followed by a 3-digit country code. If the country was a single digit like the US or Russia, I would use 7001, 7007. And if it was a 2-digit country code like the UK, 7044. So I knew that wherever I sat, I just put the 7 in the country code in 3-digit format and the extension number, and I could dial that. Okay, so you are not limited to using the same. Andrea, we don't mention that name here. Oscar, yes, it does. Like you can see down the bottom, I am getting to that. It does count towards your license, and we will see that shortly. Now, extension 100, I will call this one, the name of this extension is remote 100, so R100. And this one over here is local 100. Now, what happens here is that we have remote 100 calling 101 on this side. So 9101. The PBX will send the call through. Fantastic. It comes to PBX A. I have a call for 101. 101 answers the call. Fantastic. They talk to each other. Now, what is 101 going to see on their screen? They are going to see that remote 100 as the text, extension 100 is calling. Okay? You can start to see where I'm getting at. So extension 101 can see that remote 100 is calling him. Fantastic. Answers the phone. Hey, remote 100, how you doing? Fantastic. Okay, let me get that information to you. I'll give you a call back in a few minutes. Now, what happens is that extension 101 will go to the call history and hit dial. What's going to happen? The call basically is going to go locally. Even though they saw the correct name, this is the number that's used for the routing. It's going to go to the local. So what we do with this prefix is that the prefix that we use in the outbound rules, we put that there as well. And any number coming in will basically be showing like this. It will show that remote 100 from extension 9100 is calling. Okay, so when you hit the redial, guess where it's going to go? Back that way. Okay, it's going to go to the other PBX. It's going to use the outbound rule, the proper outbound rule, to process the call. Okay, so that's basically all it is. It's just an identifier. Now, if I had extension 200, that wouldn't be necessary. I could just dial 200 and it goes straight through where it needs to go. Okay, as long as there's no overlaps. It is also possible to bridge two PBXs with different digit extension lengths. Okay, they don't need to be the same digit numbers, the digit lengths. They can be one Pro, one Enterprise, but they need to be on the same version. Now, I can limit how many calls go through the bridge by selecting 10. 10's the default, but you can put that to only one call going through the bridge, 10, 20, 30, 5, whatever. It does count towards the license. How many simultaneous calls would that be taking? One on this PBX and 1 on this PBX. Now, even though you are bridging them together, they are two independent PBXs. They are connecting through the other PBX, through the outbound rules. It is like contacting a provider, but this one is at 0 cost. Okay, so you are using one simultaneous call from each PBX. The authentication is a randomly generated password which you can copy paste into the slave PBX. Security must be complex. We use a randomization here, but if you do change it, please make sure it is complex, and please make sure if you are copy pasting from a password policy document, not to copy paste spaces before or after. To enable the tunnel, you enable this option here, and down the bottom, you will put the IP address, not the FQDN. This is a network level authentication because this will only accept a connection from this one. It is a security feature. So put the IP address and the port that you are expecting the call to come from, okay? And that's it. That's all the configuration of the master side. Now, the slave bridge is the one that will initiate the register request. It is basically like a 3CX application connecting back to its main PBX. It uses the tunnel 5090. You can use the SIP protocol as well on 5060, but it is more secure through the bridge. They need to be on the same version and update. We are currently on update 5, and they should be both on the same version to guarantee that it works properly. If it is on different updates, on different, it's probably going to work, but we can't guarantee it, okay? Always keep it on the same version and update. Yes, Evangelos, it is only available in the Pro and Enterprise versions. Okay, not in the standard. Now, to configure the secondary side, add bridge, add slave. Configuration is almost identical, very minimal changes. Just the bridge name changes. Now, the second one was connection to Sydney office. This one is the bridge to London headquarters. Virtual extension number is the same. The outbound rule prefix can be different or the same. Maximum simultaneous calls. Be very careful with the simultaneous calls. If you define 5 on one side and 10 on one side, 5 is the maximum you can send through. It will always take the lowest of the two. Yes, it should. It should match identically. It is used as part of the authentication. It's like having a username. Okay, so if you have 10100 and 10101 on the other one, it's not going to connect, even if you have the correct username, if you have the correct password. Okay. So other than that, everything is, so this is different. That's the same. This can be same or different, and that needs to be the same as well. The password will need to be copy pasted. Make sure it is the same. You enable the bridge, put the IP address where you will be connecting to. So the PBXs are recommended to be on a static IP address, 5090, and here, 60 seconds. Every 60 seconds, we will send a new register request. We will re-register the connection to make sure that it is still active. Okay, that's the only difference that you have in the slave bridge. I can then monitor them from the SIP trunk to see if they are active or not with the red or green dots. Okay, I can see that my bridge is not active, and I will need to troubleshoot this. Once we connect, we can exchange the presence information between the two PBXs. So I can send my extension groups over to the other side. I will be presenting my extension group as a whole and presenting that. On the other side now, they will be receiving this information and distributing it to the users. So we send extension groups, and we receive individual users. Oh, it is. Renee, you're going to see how easy it is now. It is very, very simple to do this. So that is basically, if you've got the prefix of 9, you will dial 9. So on the other side, you will have a prefix of 7. So the other PBX will see that the call is coming in from 7 and the extension number. So when you redial that, it will basically go out. So each PBX will have its own prefix. So you just do your outbound rules to be accordingly the same. Okay. If you want, we can do something which is very similar to a country code when we do the prefix. So we have that, so it is visible. Okay. I will do it with prefixes so you can see it. Right. The presence is only available with a 3CX application and a 3CX web client. If you are using IP phones, you can only see the call state of calls on your own PBX. You will not be able to send this information to see on an IP phone. If you want to see the presence of another PBX, use a 3CX application. Okay. We cannot send BLF information that is SIP traffic going to the other side. So we always the information that we send is through HTTPS, so that is sent and can be visible, but a BLF on a phone is only through the SIP protocol, okay? How do we activate that? Going to the Presence tab, Publish Information, click on Add, select your groups. If you have a lot of groups, you can do a search as well to basically select them. Okie dokie. Now, to receive the presence from the other side, you will be able to receive information, okay? Put the FQDN and the HTTPS port if you are not using 443. So anything else other than 443 will need to be added here as well. This is an FQDN because we are doing a web server request. If you put a HTTPS with an IP address, what are you going to get? A warning that you have an unsecure connection. If the PBX detects an unsecure connection, you cannot send that information through. So click on Add and then select your extensions. You can do a search, extension number, first name, last name, just like we did with the extension groups, and the selection of ring group queues and queues members and queues agents. Okay. Right, so the presence is shared like this. You will be able to go to the People tab. As you see your extension groups, like we saw with the webinar and the English groups when we did the extension groups, we also see the Bridge to Sydney office and the Sydney extensions. We can see the 3 extensions there. Okay, so I can interact with them. And I can see that this is a 2-digit PBX with a digit of 9. Okay, so it is a 2-digit PBX. Now, planning ahead for the numbering. Now, once we connect more than one office together, you will need to do some numbering plans. It's not always possible. The scenario that we saw earlier on is basically this one where we don't have any numbering plan. They're all using the same extension numbers. So in this particular case, we need to put a prefix in. Since I'm using 4 digits in this example, I will need to have the prefix and the 4 digits 5, simple maths. And for those of you in the States, it is maths, not math. It's mathematics. Okay, that's a bit of an uppercut for the USA guys there. Sorry about that. And come on, you guys, you know that you deserve that, don't you? Now, and we also strip the digits, so we basically can recognize the number on the other side, okay? And I would need to use a prefix of 9 in this case. Math. That's going a bit south, isn't it? South. Right. Whoops, sorry, just coming back to this one. Now, if I'm not using overlapping extensions, I've got 4 digits, for example, starting with a 1000 on one side and 2000 on the other side. I can just put the prefix that the numbers begin with, okay, with a length of 4. So I can differentiate with numbers locally that start with a 2 and numbers that start with a 2 on the remote PBX. For example, in Cyprus, this would not be enough, okay, because numbers with a 2 is what our landlines start with. So we start with a 2 and it's followed by 7 digits after that in Cyprus. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so that's the local landline numbers in Cyprus. So if I've got an extension 200 on the other side, I can't just have a prefix of 2 for my outbound rule. I need to define the length as well and bring that up above. Jason, you know I can get really petty over 21 cents. Don't get me started on language. you know my pettiness now. Don't get me started. Oh man, I love you guys. Right, okay, so on the other side, since the digits start with a 1, I can put a prefix of 1, length of 4. The more information you have, the more specific it is, okay? And I don't need to have a prefix in my bridge settings in this case. I can if I want to, just not needed. Now, let's go and create a three-way, okay? Now, we're going to connect two PBXs there, two PBXs there, and two PBXs here. Now, when we define master and slave or primary and secondary, we basically, sorry, I've lost it a bit there. Sorry, I'm just laughing at my own joke. Sorry about that. Yeah, professionalism down the drain. When we are defining a master and a slave, we're not actually calling the entire PBX a master or a slave, okay? It is on a per connection basis. So as you can see, we have defined PBX A to be the master on this connection with PBX B, and it is a master on the connection with PBX C. However, PBX B and PBX C are both slaves on that connection, so one of them needs to be a master, one needs to be the slave. This one's the master, this one's a slave. Now, if you have static IPs or the proper port forwarding at the firewall, which one is the master, which one is the slave? It is up to you. Just flip a coin, heads or tails, and you basically decide which one you want. There is no requirement whatsoever. As long as it is accessible from the outside, it can be used as a master, okay? Now, our numbering plan. We're going to go and put the numbering plan for this one to be 1XX in the 100 range. I'm not going to use 1XXX. I'm going to use 1XX, 3 digits. I like my 3 digits. And because then I'm going to have 3XXX and you guys get all rowdy about that. Okay. Right. So we have our 3 locations. Yeah, Marilyn, I'm getting a bit brash, aren't I? I need to tone it down a bit. Guys, we do have some ladies in the crowd, so I think we need to tone it down a bit. Sorry. Oops. Did I do that? Right, so let's go and create our outbound rules now. Where's my blue? There it is. So to connect from PBX A to PBX B, the prefix that I need to have is 2, okay? And I have a length of 3, and I will send that through to PBX B. I'm going to keep it simple. I'm not going to do any stripping of digits or nothing. Oh, you can even say stripping of digits. Stripping is also considered. I know, Marlon, I'm from Cyprus. We don't do politically correct. And I work in 3CX. Not the most politically correct company. You do not want to hear what the internal staff say to each other. If we were in another country, we'd be a lawsuit waiting to happen. So from PBXB to PBXA, we have a prefix of 1 with a length of 3, and I will send that through to PBXA. So going from PBXA to PBXC, we have a prefix of, what's the number start with? That starts with extension 300, so a prefix of 3, okay? And we have a length of 3 as well. And I'll send that through to PBXC. Okay? Going from PBXC to PBXA, we have a prefix of 1 with a length of 3 and send that through to PBXA. And going from PBXB to PBXC, what's the PBXC prefix? It is a prefix of 3 with a length of 3, and we send that through to PBXC. So just creating 2 outbound rules for each PBX now. And PBXC to PBXB is a prefix of 2 with a length of 3 and send that through to PBXB. Fantastic. Now, all our network is able to talk to each other. They just dial the extension number and they can talk to each other. All our users are happy as pigs in poo. Okay, so when we connect our offices, I'm going to make this truly international now. So our PBXs Sorry, I'm just looking through the camera there. PBX-A is in Australia. PBX-B is in Belgium. And I'll give you 3 guesses where PBX-C is located. Good old Cyprus. Okay, so we have created our PBXs all around the world. Ben, it is the dialed number. So if my extension's on the other side, now you can see, sorry, just give me a second. So let's get rid of, actually, I'll do that with the black one. So I'm just going to get rid of that now. Okay, so but what I'm doing now is this. Okay, so I'm basically just doing that. Okay, now, since I'm dialing 200, I'm just dialing 3 digits. If I had a prefix in front, I would put that into the length as well. So it's the number of digits I'm actually dialing, okay? Aha. Ed, that's exactly what I'm going to do right now. Now, when we set up the Cyprus office, since we put PBX-C into the mix as well, we did some landscaping outside by the pool, our footpath. We made our gardens and everything. And as we were doing the landscaping, George the builder with his little JCB digger basically came and cut the connect. We heard a crunch and we cut the connection between Cyprus and Belgium. Now, what would happen in this case? I'm trying to dial extension 200. What would happen now? This will say, no, I can't handle the call. This goes red. So what I do now, I will use my outbound rule. It has 5 outgoing routes. Okay, so the 5 outgoing routes, I'm only using the 1. So what's my alternative now? My alternative now is to send it through the Australian PBX. This would basically, sorry, just getting that, put it back to blue and put it back to the small one. And I would say now that if B is not available, send it through A. Okay, so what happens now is that PBX Cyprus tries to contact PBX Belgium with extension 200. No. Okay, so I can't go through B, I go through A. So Cyprus goes to the Australian PBX and says, oi, Aussie, I want to speak to extension 200. The Australian PBX is going to say, I don't have an extension 200, but I've got an outbound rule that matches, so I can send that call that way. Okay, and the call will basically go like this. Okay, how many simultaneous calls is that? It will basically be 1 going out this way, 1 coming out this way. Okay, and then we have 1 and establishing another one over there. Okay, so now this one is being overutilized inefficiently, but your business keeps running. Okay, so hopefully your admin has received a notification that the link is down and basically gets it set up. Jody, that is right. You would basically define your 911 settings on each PBX. If they have the SIP trunk on them, they would basically be, because you can define which extensions can access 911, and that wouldn't allow anyone else coming from any of the other PBXs to dial 911. They would each need to dial their own emergency number. So in Belgium, it is 112. In Cyprus, it is the same. And in Australia, it is 000. Okay? It is. It's 2 licensed call paths. That is right. Yep. Okay. Now, have you understood the diagram as I've explained it? And is it simpler than this? This slide basically has in writing, like the matrix, what I explained in the previous slide. Okay. Now, once I set up the presence, I will be able to communicate with the other side. I can give them a call. I can start a video call with them. I can send them a chat. Because we are now communicating with another PBX, it is through, this will go through the bridge through the outbound rules. This will go through the outbound rules as well. This will go through HTTP, basically, and the SIP protocol as well. And this will set up a web meeting with them. I can also send them a voicemail, send them an email, and call their mobile number. This will need to have the email and mobile number defined on the other extension, okay? Stephen, I'm currently in Cyprus. Joking. Renee, basically that is possible. You will basically need to have, you can play around with that if you need to, but generally it would work, okay? So we have made a lot of improvements to the web client as well. Oh, the 3 zeros. All right, now let's go and connect our PBXs together. Okie dokie. So which one of the two do I use as master? Which one do I use as slave? Now, both my PBXs have the firewall check passed, okay? So I can use any one of the two. I will use the one which is in Cyprus as the master bridge. Okay, I will call this one bridge to cloud PBX. The virtual extension number 10,001. I like 10100. It's a nice round number. A prefix. I'm going to use prefix of 9 for this one. Okay, so we can demonstrate the prefixes as well. Maximum calls 2. That's the password I will copy paste, and I enable the tunnel connection. What's my IP address? My IP address on the other side is, okay, let me get that IP address, copy and paste. So that's all it is. That's all the configuration to connect, okay? Presence information now, publish the information. I will send my English group out. I'll send the Italians as well. Okay, and to receive the information, I will need to connect onto the other side. That's basically, and since this PBX is using 443, I just put the FQDN there. No HTTPS at the beginning. Okay, and which users can see the presence from the other side? Bob and Julia. Now, Bob basically sees the English group. Okay, he will also be able to see the Bridge to Cloud PBX group as well. Okay, and click on OK again, and that's ready to accept the connection from the other side. Let's go and configure that as well. So SIP trunks, add bridge, add slave. Now be very careful when you are configuring two PBXs side by side. It's sometimes very confusing, and a lot of people do put the IP address of the same PBX and they basically try to connect to themselves. That also happens. If that happens to you, don't worry, it happens a lot. Bridge to Nicosia PBX, and that will basically be 10100. Oh, Alex, come on. Unwanted getting on a DID unauthorized. I don't understand the question, Albertina. Don't really understand that question. How to prevent on a DID unauthorized. Don't really understand that question, to be honest. Unwanted users. I can imagine. I can probably assume it's users getting on a DID unauthorized. Basically, you define where you want to send the call to. Can you just formulate the question a bit better? I don't really understand that. Okay, so the outbound rule, I'm going to use 8 in this case, and that will basically be 2 simultaneous calls as well. Copy paste the password. Copy, paste. Now, if you are copy pasting from the PBX, we do truncate the spaces, so don't worry about that. The remote PBX is IP and port, so my IP address is copy and paste on 5090. Every 60 seconds, re-register, presence, publish, just the one group. And to receive the information, v16.3cx.co.uk on port 5001. Okay, since I'm using 5001, I will need to put that in. Add the users, Nicholas, and click on OK. It is a PBX Express PBX, so it is a bit slow. Refresh. Okay, it has sent the register. It hasn't connected through. You can select and refresh registration. Sometimes it doesn't connect instantly. It will then wait for the 1 minute and then re-register. I can force that, and that should now be connected under normal circumstances. There it is. Okay, so if you see it not connecting for the first minute, don't worry about it. After the first minute, start to worry. Just do a refresh, or you've probably entered something in wrong. So I should see that on here as well. Under SIP trunks, we are connected. So Julia now should be able to see in her people tab, she can see the bridge to cloud PBX. You can see basically extension 900, okay? Because the extension that I'm using on that one, okay, is extension 00, okay? Albertina, basically what this is a connection between two PBXs. So I've connected my PBX, which is in the cloud, to the one which is in Cyprus, okay? So this is the V16 web client. So I've connected with Julia's extension, and she can basically see the extensions on the other side. So the other one basically is extension 00, but since I've put the prefix of 9, I can see that at the beginning. If I connect with, where is it? Paris web client, I should be able to see, come on, move it. I should be able to see, yep, the bridge, and I can see the extensions, which are 3 digits. I can see them with the 8 at the beginning as well. So under the SIP trunk, basically, this is where I create my bridges, basically. Okay, so add bridge, and I've got my SIP provider account, and I've got my my cloud PBX. Okay, so it is basically just like a SIP trunk. Okay, so now I'm basically telling my PBX, connect to the other side. I want you to connect to that PBX now. Rather than connecting to a SIP provider, I'm connecting to another PBX. Okay. Right, so we've got the two connected together now. In order to make a call, can I make a call? I will go to my, web client. So 900, I'm going to use my phone over here so you can actually hear it. 900. Okay, it basically says not found. If I go to my PBX under my activity log, okay, I should see that there is I should basically see the refresh. $19.38, current calls none. Somewhere over here I should have my, yeah, because I've got a high logging level on that. Somewhere here I'll do it. We're going to basically cover this tomorrow, so I can say extensions 101 now. So oops, not that one, 101, and call number 44. Okay, so that is basically not found. Okay, so that does not match any known extension number. Okay, so it's trying to go out to the outbound rules, and it's basically saying not found. Okay, so the PBX does not know how to process that. Oscar, yes, it can. You're going to do that from the inbound rules, but you're not going to, where is it? Inbound rules. But rather than going to an extension, you will basically say send to an outside number and dial, for example, 9100 or 900. Okay, so you're going to do that. It basically is an external number, yeah. Okay, so now we have connect. Now we need to create my outbound rule that say calls to cloud PBX extensions. Okay, calls to number starting with a prefix of 9 with a length of 3. Send them through to the PBX and click on OK. I need to move that. Actually, I don't. Would that work? Calls from extensions if it doesn't go through that. Let's try that. So 900, not found. Need to move that up. So 900. Why is it not sending the call out? Hang on, am I doing it correctly? 90902. Let's try to see if that works. Oh, okay. I do have it restricted for any outgoing countries as well. So I don't need to add my extension as well. I'm just keeping it general because if I don't have an extension or extension group, any extension should be able to make that call out. Let's go and have a look and see in the activity log why so I did put more restrictions on that. Stop call, refresh. Filter, let's go and have a look and see that recent call. 404 invite 902. I've got my call somewhere there. Calls matches outbound rule, calls to cloud. Well, it has matched the rule, but for some reason it is not sending that call out. Let me go and remove that prefix so we can try that, because I think it is matching probably a country code. So SIP trunks, the bridge. I'm just going to remove that prefix there. Okay, let me just try that one. Oh, so that's not going to work, sorry. So 00, 02. Hang on, am I? Nope, they're all gone. I did forget to strip. Oh, shit. Okay, not a good day today for me. So let me just go put that. I did forget to strip the number. Ouch, that hurt. Sorry, outbound rules, strip the number. Strip the prefix. So let's go try that now, 900, and there it is. Okay, so now that's going out to the other, oh, that's on do not disturb, sorry, just put that to available. Yeah, I know. Okay, so that's coming through, I can answer it, and I'm receiving the call from 8101. Okay, so that's got the prefix there as well. Now, in order for that to call back, I would need to put the outbound rule for this one as well. So outbound rule, click on add. Let's go and put that calls to Nicosia PBX extensions. Calls number starting with a prefix of 8 with a length of 4. And we will send that through the bridge. Don't forget to strip the digit Nicholas this time. How embarrassing. Now, because that matches the prefix of 8 there, I would need to move that up. Otherwise, that would go to the provider. And I can call 8. I can actually see the status as well. Sorry, just get the... Now we can see that I have my... Okay, so my English groups. Okay, there it is there. And I can call 8103. So let's call 8103. There it is, the call's coming through, and I can see it's coming from extension 900. Okay. So you can see that, yes, the problem was between the computer and the keyboard. Okay. So that is our PBX setup done with the bridges. And if I'm not mistaken, we can't connect to two different PBXs using the same web browser. What do you mean? I'm connected to v16 and paris.36.com.cy. It's a different session. You can't connect to the same PBX with two tabs, okay? Because that would connect basically to the same account, but you can use Incognito. Oh yeah, I'm connected as a client to this one and to that one, two different PBXs. Using the same one, yeah, you'd need to log out and log back in if you need to connect to two of them, okay? Right, so let's go and move on. Yep, Incognito, same two different browser tabs, same time, yeah. Okay, stop that and move on to advanced outbound. So what we're going to do in this module is we are going to use our bridge to make calls from one PBX through the provider of another. Now, the PBX that I've got on this one, if I try to call, okay, my test number that I use as my destination if no answer, okay, that's not able to go out because the 1777 network is only available from within the call-centric network, which is on the PBX that I have here. So I'm going to make a call through that network through this PBX. So what we're going to do is we are going to see the outbound rules and the criteria. The prefix, what the dialed number starts with. So you can put as many digits as you want. The PBX will take the characters that you put in, and if the number starts with that, it will match it with the rule. I use the number length as well, the length of the dialed number, how many digits I'm actually keying into the keypad, prefixes included. We can also do the calls from extensions, so we can add and restrict this rule to an extension specifically, or extensions, or extension groups. For example, a lot of people use the extension groups as routing groups. They have, for example, an extension group which is called international callers. They put all the extensions that can make international calls. They remove all the group rights from that group, so only the admin can see it in the outbound rules, okay, and use them as routing groups. So if someone comes into the corporation, you need to just put their extension into the relevant groups that you want, and the outbound rules will remain the same and take whatever is in the extension group. Again, the rules are checked from top to bottom. We will do the first matching. As you saw, it doesn't move on to the next one if it does make a match. We need to have at least one of the four criteria filled in. Having these blank, just putting a name and the route down the bottom will not work. Okay, so this basically is the other way around. If you just put a name and the route, it is just an empty rule and we'll ignore it. Our fields can accept multiple value, can accept single values, for example. Prefix of 00, it is multiple digits, one value. I can have multiple values by comma separating them. Prefix of 00 or a plus for the international calls. If you're in the US, that's 011, for example. And value ranges, prefix of 0 to 9, any number on the keypad will be valid as the first digit. Combinations of the above, extensions 102 and 302, 105 to 117 inclusive. The logic that we use in 3CX to process the rules is a mixture of OR and logic. When you are using the extensions and the extension groups criteria, it's OR. So if it matches this or this, it is valid. Then this will be used with the number length and the prefix. Okay, so these two are AND logic and these are AND logic as well, but between the two, these are OR. Coding and scripting, that's the syntax. Once we meet the criteria, we will go and process the call in the outbound routes. We've got 5 in total. We saw 2 of them in action earlier on. We do have the capability. This one is especially valid for me. Okay, strip the digits from the beginning of the number. Okay, now you've seen what happens when a call doesn't go through because we don't strip the digits. Please don't have that happen to you. Okay, I got egg on my face. Don't get it on yours. So strip the digits from the beginning of the number, how many digits to take away, and what to prepend at the beginning. We check the routes in numerical order. If the first route is unable to process the call for any reason, whether it's busy, all the configured channels have been taken, we have an error message from the provider, the line has been cut, we will move on to the next one. Now, in addition to getting an error code or having the call fail on that one, if the call is unavailable, if the provider or the gateway is unavailable, or the bridge, we will wait for a period of 32 seconds if we don't receive a response. After the 32 seconds are up, it will then move on to the next one. A common mistake that people make is that they put the same provider 5 times. That is actually not a good practice, because if your first configured provider is taking 32 seconds to respond, it will move on to the next one. It will then send the request again to the same provider, which will take another 32 seconds to respond. You're at the 1 minute and 4 second mark now. Here you're at the 2 minute and 8 second mark, and here you're at 2.5 minutes. Okay, so be very careful when you are doing that, because I guarantee someone will be on the phone for 2.5 minutes saying, "Oh, the phones are not working." Okay, so put them out of their misery as quickly as possible. If we find block call in any route, we will stop the call immediately, even if you have valid providers underneath. Okay, that does sometimes happen if you have your VoIP provider number 1 in the first route, second provider there, third, fourth, and fifth providers. If you go and delete the SIP trunk of the first provider, any reference to them in the outbound rules will go to block. Okay, so sometimes it does happen. If you recreate the provider, you just need to go and remap it in the outbound rules. I can use my outbound rules for blocking calls as well. For example, calls to 00, international calls, or a plus. Put everything to block calls or the first one, and that will block the calls out. Now, the PBX has certain system extensions that can make outgoing calls as well. Voicemail. When you go into the voicemail system, you authenticate, go into the options. One of the options is to make an outgoing call. It is disabled by default, but if you do have it enabled, the PBX is in a position to make that call out. The conference server. The conference server basically has ability when an audio conference is about to start to make the outgoing call to the participants if they have a valid number to give them that call. I can, through my forwarding rules or my extension exceptions, send the call outside as well. DISA. The direct inward one. Yeah, that would be the external call redirection. That is basically that one over there. Okay, so this is your inbound rules redirecting the call outside. But from the extension forwarding rules and the exceptions, you can forward the call outside. That is a system extension. It's not actually when we say a user extension, it is the person actually dialing the number. So even though your forwarding rules are configured under your extension, it is the PBX placing the call, not the extension. Okay. Queues and ring groups, the destination if no answer to go out, the inbound rule forwarding out, and the queue callback. The queue callback, basically, if we need to send it out with the prefix as well, if we have it, we need to send that out through the system extension. Okay. System extensions are not user extensions. They do not have a phone provisioned on them. They are not part of any extension group. They are within the PBX itself, internal extensions of the PBX. An outbound call going from a system extension will fail if you define extension or extension group criteria. So if you define extension 700 to go out to any number 0 to 9 or a plus, that will actually fail. We want system extensions to be without a limitation of extensions or extension groups. So what we do is something very similar to the following. We put the rules at the top that define our extensions, okay? And we basically have them at the top. We make a block everything in the middle with the blue box, and underneath that, system extensions going internationally and locally without restrictions for extensions or extension groups. Now, the aim of the admin is to process calls without as minimal cost as possible, okay? So the least cost that you can incur in a cost is 0. Zip, zilch, mithen, nada, or as the governor of New York basically said a few days ago, he was saying nada, 0, zilch, and in Greek he actually said skata instead of mithen, okay? He actually said shit instead of... Okay, so 0 is the bum kiss as well here. So you basically have 0 as the minimal cost. So that is our aim, to incur the least cost whenever possible, because it can add up. You reckon, Stephen? They have a sense of humor? I think you just tried to show a bit of smartness there. But anyway, now we will use our outbound rules to select which trunk, which bridge, or which gateway to send the call through when we want to incur the least cost. A SIP provider basically can process local landline calls, mobile long distance international calls. A bridge can call the extensions on the other side, but we can also use bridge connected lines and gateways. So if I've got a SIP provider in Cyprus, my Australian colleagues can use my PBX in Cyprus to call Cypriot numbers, okay? The rule order is important. The metric that you use for least cost routing is up here. Which provider costs less to go to Australia? Which provider costs less to go to Cyprus? The PBX does not have any metrics. You define it with the outbound rules. Now, a rule, for example, to go internationally, prefix of 00, could be a plus as well. Go to your VoIP provider, okay? So you define your outbound rules. If you need to strip any digits and prepend something, you can do so. Now, as you've seen, the ordering of the rules is important. If I try to go internationally through this rule set, 00 would basically match the first digit of 0 in the national calls. It would go through the PSTN gateway rather than the VoIP provider, which probably is a bit more expensive. Now, it could be a couple of pennies or a couple of cents, but at the end of the month, if you have a high volume of calls, that can add up. Okay, so you've seen how easy it is to resolve, select, and move up. We have seen the prefix as well with the digits. It's the strip digits is finding me again. I don't know, this is going to haunt me for days now. So basically we have a prefix of 9 with a length of 4 because I'm dialing 3-digit PBX. Strip the digits before sending it out. Don't do like I did. I'm not going to live that through that. Going to international calls through another PBX now. So I've got my PBX in Germany, I've got my PBX in Belgium, Cyprus, Australia, wherever. If I need to make calls to that particular country, I can send them through that PBX. So I can have a prefix of 0049 or a +49. I send the call to go through that PBX. I will strip the 4 digits, okay? Actually, that is something I will need to correct. I just noticed that now. So just give me a second. I will, okay, prepend 0 in that rule. Okay, so basically I will be removing the 0049 or the +49 depending on how many digits I've written in. This will basically allow me to send the call out. But in Germany, if I remove the country code, I will need to use a 0 for that to process as a national call. So you need to know the dialing plan of the country you're connecting to as well, and placing the call through. So for Germany, I will need to place a 0 in front of that, okay? As a second priority, I can send that through the VoIP provider without modifying the number in any way. The rule for the callback prefix. We mentioned the callback prefix yesterday, so I put that in as an 8. Okay, so when a callback is requested, I will then go and process the rule with an 8. So 8112, 8911 have it blocked, 800 blocked as well, and calls to national numbers are allowed. Okay, so I have created a nice little rule set there as well. Right, so to finish up for today, we will go and basically connect our two PBXs with a SIP trunk, one between the other. Okay, so my PBX on this side, it is using for the calls, it's using this SIP trunk over here. This SIP trunk provides me with calls within the US for a lab environment free for 2 minutes. Okay, it is any USA number. However, the 1777 number that I'm using on my call-centric number, okay, to the 1777 network is only available within their network. Jody, no, what the switchboard does is only from the local PBX, but you will be able to see if someone is in a call. So if I call my voicemail from this one, you will see that I'm in a call. Okay, so you can see that I'm actually in a call. No, you won't be able to see that. So if I go to the switchboard, I can't see that. That's only local on the local PBX, but I can see if a person is on the phone from here. Okay, just not where they're to, because it is a separate, it is another PBX essentially. You're not part of that extension group. Okay, so it is like on the local PBX where you have published group information. That's very similar to how that works. You can see the other groups, but you can't see their active calls. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go to this PBX now. If I try to dial, where is it? 1-777, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, dial, that will basically get blocked. So now what I need to do is I need to go to my outbound rules on this one, and I will say calls to the call-centric specific network. This could be a different country. I'm just simulating this to be able to go through to the other side. Calls to number starting with a prefix of 1-777. I will send that call through my bridge, not modifying the number. Click on OK, and I will need to move this up. Okay, because otherwise it will get the 1 from this one. So let's go and have a look and see what happens now. Make the number again, put it on speaker. Okay, so basically now what we have is this PBX is going from this extension through this bridge to Nicosia to this number. Okay, so it's going through the bridge. On the other side now, this PBX is receiving the call from the bridge from this extension from 900 with the prefix as well, and it's sending it out through the call-centric network to that number. Okay, so we see the linkage as well. Yeah, it's the Aussie accent. Right, so basically that is it. Before we finish off, I will come back to my other VM. Okay, just what we mentioned at the beginning as well. Coming back to our little case here, which we will be using as a troubleshooting case tomorrow as well. So this will be used as our troubleshooting, just so we can see what happens and how I activated the PBX. Even though the attack was successful, I did manage to catch it. I did manage to sort of contain it, sort of. There was no saving of that, but and how I basically responded to that. Okay, so again, now the thing is, I've got the number. I can actually call this person and see who it is. Okay, so I can start calling these numbers now. Well, Javier, basically, I wouldn't think that there was a. Well, I can actually. It doesn't seem like a VPN IP address. It seems like it was basically just from the provider itself. Okay, So I do have numbers. I can actually call these numbers and see who it is. Okay. I will actually let the provider do that. I'm not going to do it. I could if I was petty enough, but I'm not that petty. I've got better things to do with my time, but I will send a nice long email um, to the provider. They do have an abuse address, so it's basically once you do a who is, you have the abuse right there as well. I can just basically do that, and I can just send it to them. I will send them all the information that they need, and they can take care of it. Now, if it is one of you guys in the webinar, please own up to it. I will let it go if you do contact. I'm not going to ask for my money back. It's only 21 cents for God's sake, but it's just the principle of why you did it. When me, with all the good faith, wanted to show you all the information. I have no problem showing passwords. I unmask passwords. Probably the QR code was the one, just a print screen when it showed up. Not good, not right. If they are in here, it is the moral of it. If they are in here and they're shitting their pants, they shouldn't. They should shit their pants if they don't own up to it, and I will take action on it. No, Zach, I'm not going to do that. I'm not. Listen, if someone does come and say, like, okay, I took advantage of it, I just wanted to play around a bit, okay, we're all techs. We all like when we find something to try our luck, okay, but don't do it to your trainer. It's like, because likely when something happens and you ask for help, it will backfire. Actually, not even in the chat. I don't even want it in the chat. Send an email. My email address, as you can see, you've probably seen a few times, is np, no problem, @3cx.com, or at training. Send it to training@3cx.com. Okay, and I will receive that email. And for the training, only I receive those emails, and no one else in the company will see it. Let's end this quickly. Okay, and that's why we can't have nice things. So, guys, that is it for tonight. We will be back again tomorrow for the most fun webinar. We only have 2 modules, the basic troubleshooting and the security. So going along in line with what we see here, we will basically use this as an example. We will see how I basically, with these emails, I basically contained it. Okay, so have a great day. If you are at the beginning of your day in the US, if you are anywhere in the world, have a great evening. We'll see you again tomorrow. I'm going to go home so I can get the curfew. So from me, good night. See you tomorrow. And I'm waiting for that email. See you.